Hey everybody, my name is Jason Stallings. Today I want to talk to you about the painting Can You See Me? I did this painting, created this painting in about 2006 in Savannah, Georgia when I was still in school. I was taking a class under Professor Joy Flynn in Drawing 3. Uh, this is the second really majorly successful abstract painting that I've ever done, or at least since then, since getting started. And that first piece is a kind of long and narrow pastel piece that is currently in my mom's art collection. uh, but that was really interesting because I did that first piece kind of piecemeal while driving from Savannah to Oxford, Mississippi, to my cousin's graduation at the time. In any case, getting back to the painting that we're talking about today, Can You See Me was part of an assignment where we had to do an abstract portrait of a person that we were influenced by. At the time, I was listening to a lot of music, specifically The Who, uh, Tommy, Who's Next, and a lot of their live stuff, Isle of Wight. There's a lot of really great kinetic energy. And I was really heavily influenced by the dynamics of Pete Townsend and Keith Moon, who were sort of this juxtaposition of control and chaos. And that was really the first kind of genesis of influence that I got that informed the kind of approach I have to art making. Arguably, still today, what I do. And this began a pretty funny story. I was instructed by the teacher to brew a very, very heavy pot of coffee and pour it over the piece. Now, everybody else had done a kind of full just sheet of paper. I actually got the cut of the sheet wrong. It was a little short. So I kind of made a deal with the professor that I would like to just glue this paper kind of in parts on canvas. So that's kind of how I got that approach, kind of by accident. Yeah, one morning, my roommate Eric at the time woke up and it was pretty bad because I had this big canvas with a big puddle of coffee sitting on it. He was like, "What are you doing? What's going on?" So I basically explained that it was part of a school project, and he said, "Okay, well, just make sure you know, keep it clean, keep it off of the floor." I think I did in the kitchen. I want to say it was on top of the tarp, but don't quote me on that. In any case, I really took a very simple approach to this as far as composition goes, even though it's a fairly complex painting. Mostly, with the exception of a few things like musical instruments, the kind of eyes and nose of Tommy in the middle being the exception. It's really in a pinball kind of going around. It's mostly just very simple shapes, squares, rectangles, circles, with a triangular composition guiding everything. And beyond that, I was also incorporating some mixed media elements that I learned in a class in my illustration curriculum from a illustrator by the name of C.F. Payne. And I've actually contacted C.F. Payne. I need to follow up with him in the future, but I took the basic idea of his approach to picture making, where you would have one medium on one layer, seal it and spray it. At the time, we used something called SureGuard, which I think is highly toxic, and I don't think it's even available for sale anymore. Because I have tried to find it in stores and actually got some clapback from an art store that I eventually worked at for buying something that was actually pretty bad for the environment and for people. So much so that in the classes where we use this, we would be asked to walk at least a half block away from this class, so nobody would be breathing in carcinogenic fumes. But in any case, I layered acrylic first, and then where we kind of set the color scheme. Then we would another layer we would thin out black oil paint. I think in this case I mixed black with dark ultramarine blue and burnt umber, which creates a richer black. You thin it out with turpentine or mineral spirits or whatever. Then you set certain areas with a very loose, dark color. After you allow that to dry, the idea is to take a kneaded eraser and kind of rub out the certain area so you get some variation in the values and you get some instant contrast. It's a really great and effective way to get the value contrast in the painting figured out really fast. And you can kind of build everything on top of that. So in areas where I didn't have oil paint, I started incorporating some soft pastels, which is an approach I still use. Even though I think since then I've actually switched from oil paint in that layer to water-soluble graphite and sometimes gouache. The graphite, actually, water-soluble graphite, especially like art graphs, like that really replicates the same effect really well. Even though there's kind of a nice, interesting, kind of drizzly breakage of the oil paint that you get when you use turpentine, which kind of has some interesting effects. So, but the interest of kind of, and I don't use coffee anymore too. But that was just a really interesting way, because but the beautiful thing about the coffee, which you kind of get with like some really high flow like golden acrylics, if you water them down real heavily, is that you get this really nice patina and this really nice brown. It really adds a really nice rich color. But in any case, from here, the other element I got from CF Payne was the incorporation of like colored pencils. In his illustrations, he does watercolor first, then acrylic. That part of it I don't really get. That doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm sure he has a rationale behind it. And then you get the oil paints, but every time you switch the layers, you're sealing it, and then you erase a little bit. In this case, in this painting and some other paintings, I use a little bit of light sandpaper to kind of iron out some of the contrast as well. But I also used some colored pencils in this painting. So that's how you get kind of definition and brightness and things. And also for some line definition, I use oil pastels. Between soft and the colored pencil in different areas. So obviously you have to be very conscientious of what mediums are next to each other, so things don't conflict. But it is very possible to do that without like having a lot of issues. So anyway, that is the first painting I ever sold. It was about 48 by 48, and still in college. It's pretty exciting. I have attempted to replicate this color scheme a few times, especially with commissions. It's one that I commonly get asked to do, just because like the visual impact is so interesting, and even though it's oddly enough, it's just a very simple painting, but it's very effective. And and this one I actually used a little bit of gold leaf, which really adds something nice to it. But beyond that, I just it's turned. Oh yeah, where I was most successful in replicating it, I would say, is recently with the Lyons and Simmons 8 by 10 foot commission. Though, going back and replicating that same process about 13 or 14 years later is it's actually pretty challenging, but it is possible. I mean, when you're creating, your approach and your influence does vary a lot over time, especially if you're really being conscious about growing as an artist and changing and evolving. So, but in any case, it's still a painting I'm really proud of and happy to share the story. So, if you're interested in getting commissioned in my work, shoot me an email, or if you would like to purchase a piece or a print, available on my website. And nationally, it's I only sell paintings through the website in America. Everything else is sold internationally through Loop Art or Saatchi if you want one of the abstract portraits. So, thanks for listening.